Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Homedance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth. We talk about the latest home video releases. We give you our opinions, very unfiltered at times. So it's it's always a good time. But I'm going to let you kick it off this week.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't have any outright atrocities this week from what I remember, so that's pretty good. A couple weeks ago, I had like a slate where I had an insane amount of films. It's not quite up to that level, but this is another hefty slate for me this week. So I'll have some of these multi-film sets I'm going to have to go through pretty quickly. But my first set I'm very excited about. It's from our friends at Radiance Films, and this is Cosa Nostra, 3 Franco Nero films directed by Damiano Damiani. So it's the first Radiance box set that I've been able to get because that's the first one they've released in the US. All the others have been, I think, overseas only. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. Like I said, these are 3 mafia tales. The first one is Day of the Owl, which co-stars Claudia Cardinal, who I really like. And all of these do have reversible cover art, which I'll try to display for everyone. So this was made in the late 60s. Here's the, did a little bit too far for this reversible cover art. Okay, so here is the reverse here. And just so you know, here's like the little piece of paper that usually comes on the Radiance thing. So this is how it looks whenever it comes to you. It'll look like that for those who get it. I just wanted to show off the package in all of its glory. So Day of the Owl, this is a pretty fun one. It's more like kind of a standard one where it's Franco Nero plays a cop in this small, quite criminal-ridden town where a construction worker is disappeared, and his now widow, no one knows, but it is his widow, Claudia Cardinal, like she's kind of searching for her husband, trying to search for answers. And so it's kind of like this tale of corruption and just intrigue within this town. And the mafia, like basically head of this kind of mafia syndicate right in this town, is played by Lee J. Cobb, which is a lot of fun. I love whenever he pops up and stuff. So this is a really fun one. Like I said, it's more straightforward, but there's a lot of really good intrigue, a lot of good moral ambiguity as like the characters go along, and they're trying to catch up to what we all know, which is the mafia. They're pretty brutal. But overall, Day of the Owl, it's a really strong one, and I think anyone who's a fan of mafia films will really like it. The second one I have here is The Case is Closed, Forget It, which is, I love whenever like Italian films especially have some like these intense titles, and I'm just like, okay, that's cool. Like I remember a lot of the Poliziotti films that I would review from Arrow had a lot of titles like that, which would always amuse me. These cases being clear is really throwing off my depth perception of how far I should put these covers down. But here's the reversible cover art here. And here's the disc art. This one is a fan for those who like prison dramas, because this is Franco Nero film where he is a man who, as far as we know, is unfairly put into prison and kind of like introduced into this criminal underworld where the prison is controlled by the mafia, and he doesn't know whether he should align with someone in the prison because he thinks he's going to get out pretty quickly. But the longer he stays in there, the more dire his circumstances become, as to like he wants to protect like some of his new friends that are like on the wrong side of the mafia, and kind of how he needs to wrestle with either his self-preservation or whether to be a good person and actually try to do the right thing, and what that means within this corrupt prison system. And the ending of this especially is like kind of a gut punch where I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but just the way the characters end up and like how they are wrestling with what they've been through, it's very impactful, and I think it's a really really interesting movie. And it just kind of I like how these three films are not distinctly the same thing. They all have kind of their own identity, so it's not like you're watching like three clones of each other. They each kind of have their own flavor, and which continues on to the last film in the set, which is How to Kill a Judge, which is a really cool one because it's like kind of a more of a meta movie where Franco Nero plays a film director who has made a mafia movie in which a judge is killed, and of course this raises the ire of some actual judges who are afraid that it might inspire some like copycat killings in real life. And then eventually it does put a judge's life in danger, so it kind of it's Franco Nero's character and like the judge's wife going on this like journey of like trying to figure out what is actually happening in real life with the mafia, whether or not like her husband is going to be safe, all that kind of good stuff. So it's like this mafia tale with like this meta context of how film influences society, and like kind of what your responsibilities are as a filmmaker to what to portray and stuff. And it doesn't really offer clean cut like moral guidelines. You kind of have to like wrestle with that on your own. But I think it's just kind of an interesting approach to a mafia tale, just to kind of like show like, oh, all these mafia movies that we're like pumping out every year. Maybe we should think about how we're like dealing with this, because the mafia is out there. So like just kind of like all that, like how they are portrayed in media is very interesting. So overall, these three films are really cool, and I've showed off all of those three cases. This is the thick with two C's booklet that you get if you get in early on this first edition. There are so many great essays and like just like accompaniments to these movies, and just like learning about mafia films in general. It's kind of like a film guide like in addition to all these movies, which is pretty cool. So really great sturdy packaging. These releases also look really great. These are all new 2K restorations from the original negative. All the films have both the original Italian audio and an English dub. And especially Day of the Owl, the first movie, its Italian cut is about 5 minutes longer than the English cut. So there's actually two different versions of the movie on that disc, which they do through seamless branching. So that's all on one disc. But you can either watch the English export or the original Italian, depending on what you want. And this is loaded with special features. Each disc includes a new interview with Franco Nero, which usually runs from about 13 to 17 minutes, depending on the disc, where he's talking about each film and kind of like his relationship with the director, his career at large. It's really great. There's also some other interviews with some of the people who worked on this. Some of these are vintage interviews. Some of these are new. There's some new visual essays. I believe there's a visual essay on each disc, which kind of delves into the Italian crime genre. And a lot of those are really like nice and substantial. Like I think one's about 40 minutes long, and there's others around that as well. Also one about the director, like as his life as well. So packed to the gills with special features, really nice packaging, really nice transfers, great audio options. Overall, this is a home run. I wanted to start off with a bang here. I love Radiance films. They did not disappoint me. So if you're a fan of like crime tales, this Cosa Nostra set is out of this world. I love it.
Now, Day of the Owl, would you say that was a hoot?
Yes, it was a hoot. It was a real gas.
No, that's those all sound really interesting, especially the one that was a little more meta. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always interesting, especially how other countries sort of do like meta commentary.
Mhm.
I am also going to start with something that I really liked. Unlike last week where I started with one that was maybe not great, but um
It happens.
yeah, Smiling Friends. And this is
That's
something that I had heard of. Let me show you the back, but I had actually not seen it until reviewing this. So I'm gonna pop this open. Here's what it looks like. I'm gonna gently take this disc out. There is like a lot of these, there is an episode guide here, and you have like some interior art. And I like the disc. It's cool. So yeah, so I want to first start off by saying like this is not a kid cartoon. It looks like it. It is not. Um, and also just a slight trigger warning. Um, there is an episode pretty early on. I think it might be like the first or second episode where they do talk about suicidal ideation. So if that's something that's sort of triggering, just keep that in mind. But yeah, I have to say I think this is maybe one of my favorite new Adult Swim cartoons. Like for me, this is right up there with like Royal Crackers or My Adventures with Superman. The humor definitely is like Take No Prisoners. It walks a really nice line between surreal and very dark, but it never feels edgy for edgy's sake. Like it always kind of has a point, even if that point is how pointless certain things are. For example, there is the final episode is where they go to Brazil, but the whole episode is basically like logistics because someone didn't book the hotel. So it's just this like absurd. I don't know. It's funny because it's so anti what you would expect. It's not this wild adventure in Brazil. It's just like everyday sort of issues. But then it can get into the more fantastical. One of my favorite episodes is the like high fantasy questing episode. It's great. I love how they do like a take on like the animated Hobbit movie where like the character looks almost exactly um like that character. And I was like, oh yeah, like Warner Brothers, Lord of the Rings, they could totally do like a proper crossover maybe someday. But yeah, it's I love it. I think it's really fun. It is very dark, but I will say like it goes in really hard, but then I think like it sort of finds a nice balance. Like it's thankfully not overly bleak. Like the first episode is kind of hard, kind of hard to watch because it does again kind of deal with some very sensitive issues. Like I said, wisely they kind of soften up a little bit, but yeah, it's really hilarious. We do have episode commentaries. We have some I think some featurettes. And yeah, I was kind of hoping that we would get a poster with this because with some of the other releases from Adult Swim we have, but not in there. But maybe next time. You've seen this, right? I feel like
Yeah,
you've
I had a lot of
reviewed.
fun with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very quick binge too because they're like
Mhm.
11-minute episodes and there's only like 6 or 7 episodes, I believe. So it's less than 2 hours worth of content, but it's still a really great disc. And like I had a blast going through these. Like I was like, I felt like a sick person for laughing at some of the stuff, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What was your favorite? Did you have a favorite episode?
Um, I don't know. It's hard to say. I really like the one where I don't know. I've already forgotten their names, but one of them are they're supposed to be finding like trying to reconnect this guy with his girlfriend, and but one of them falls in love with the girlfriend, and how that eventually
Yeah.
resolves itself. I felt so bad, but it was so hilarious. But I just like kind of like almost the rom-com esque like take on that one episode and just how it eventually like falls apart. It really amused me.
Yeah, I like how it does like take some like kind of tropey things, like you said, the rom-com thing or like the high fantasy stuff, and like twist it in a really interesting way. So yeah, I like it. I haven't heard if we're getting a second season or if
We
that
are.
was
It should be coming fairly soon.
Right.
I'm not sure if it got upended because of the writer strike or anything, but I know it's been rumored to come pretty soon. So it's probably maybe sometime this fall or winter.
Nice. Yeah, it's great. It's a great disc. And support this show because I want more. I want a second season. I want a third. I want a fourth. Give it to me. So
yeah, this show wasn't on my radar, but I was so glad that it got a Blu-ray release because a lot of like Adult Swim shows just get DVD releases and stuff. So I'm glad this was another one, kind of like Rick and Morty, that they feel is successful enough to get a Blu-ray. So I hope they continue that for future seasons. So fingers crossed. Maybe they'll do the Rick and Morty route and give it a steelbook in the fuure, and then you'll get your post. I guess we'll
nice.
see. Yeah. My next title, I know you're going to be thrilled that I watched. This is Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead. If you saw me looking away while you were talking on that last one, I was trying to look up because I know you're always trying to get me to watch Fulci films. And I was like, is this my first one? It is not, but I believe this might be my first horror film from him because I think a lot of the ones I've seen before are like crime dramas, like Mafia Tales or something, or Western, like Western. This is just kind of like an advert, but I like the art, so I'm just keeping that in there. This also does have reversible cover art too, which I'll show off now. This was released earlier this year in like kind of a limited edition run from Cauldron Films, and this is the standard edition that's now being released more generally. So here is the reversible cover art here. So if you want like any bells and whistles or slip covers or anything, you might want to see if they still have any of those left at any like boutique retailers like Diabolic or anything. But yeah. So City of the Living Dead, it is a wild time. I won't delve too much into the plot because I think plot is almost kind of irrelevant in this one. But basically what it is at the beginning of the film, a priest hangs himself, and it kind of opens up like the gates of hell, and there's only so long before like our protagonists, including like a medium and a reporter and all these people, like have to close the gates of hell before like the spirits or whatever, or like the dead can walk the earth, basically. But while that is the plot, it just seems almost kind of like a series of vignettes of like grotesque gore and blood. And so like there's things that like connect and stuff, but it's a very much like a mood piece in my opinion. And it seems like from what I like gathered from like the special features and from like reading additionally, it seems like Fulci like didn't care about certain things enough. Like he apparently lost the end, like the actual ending, and just never reshot it. And it's just like, so it ends on kind of a weird note where you're like guessing it's like, oh, what's this woman screaming at? But you're just like, there was something he shot. It just kind of got like lost, and he's just like, I'm not doing it again. So he's just like, fuck it, which I find very funny. But what really struck me about this movie, and I think anyone who's watched it will kind of like understand, is it's just like really like evocative mood and gore, and like he's like an artist with gore. Like in some of the sequences that he comes up with, I was just like, what is going on here? And he even got me on one thing because he like hit on something very specific that I do not like, which I'll explain in a second. But like the sequence of the woman just throwing up her guts, like literally, is insane. And this isn't like really comparable to, exactly to like the Romero zombie films. It's a different beast, I would say. Both are really great in their own ways, but just like some of the ways like the back of people's heads are just ripped open and stuff, it's beautiful but disgusting. But the thing that really got me in this movie was like the scene with all the maggots, because I have a thing with maggots that they just freak me the fuck out, and I do not like maggots. So like when there was a room full of them, I was squirming, and I did not like that at all. There's also a scene where I wanted to yell at the screen, what the hell are you doing to this character? Because there is a woman trapped in a coffin, and he just starts like randomly swinging a pickaxe, and I was like, dear God, what are you doing? You're going to kill her when she is surprisingly alive in this coffin. And I was just like, it's very effective, but I was just like, I was so taken aback. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you swinging it like this? It's very well done, but I was losing my damn mind. So this movie is wild. um, I think it's a lot of fun. Fulci, I'm excited to like watch more of his horror output and just like see how he delights in like disgusting gore and everything. But it's great. I like it a lot. It's my first time watching this, obviously. But this 4K looks very nice. It does come up from a 4K restoration. Looks fantastic. Dolby Vision looks really nice. I had read a little bit on this release and how it compares to other releases. I know there still are some issues in a final like kind of segment of this picture with maybe like 10 or 15 minutes where sometimes there's some small fluctuations in the color, I think due to the source. I did not notice it like as like a huge issue, but apparently it is a little bit improved upon like previous releases from like Scorpion releasing, or I believe Blue Underground may have put out a release in the past, or maybe I know Arrow has overseas, but several releases in the past. They've had kind of this issue that's been more of an issue, but I think it kind of got a little bit refined with this new 4K Dolby Vision restoration. It's not perfect, but it looks really nice. The grain I think is pretty solid. It's a very grainy film, but it's supposed to be. It's natural. There's an English and Italian audio. There's a mixture of languages spoken, so I think you can go with whatever you prefer. I think since this is an Italian production, you might get more authenticity with the Italian track, but then there's a lot of people speaking English, so go with God. There are 4 commentary tracks on this, which like there's a lot. If you don't know, you'll know after these commentary tracks. 3 of these are ported over from previous releases. One, though, I believe the one with Sam Deegan. That one's new to this release. There's an interview with the production designer. There's an interview with a couple of the actors, including the one who played Bob. There's a very good piece with the special effects artist, which our producer Andre specifically was like, watch this like before you watch the movie, and like just seeing his prolific career is really a lot of fun. There's a couple of good Q&As that are pretty lengthy. And also, there are 2 very interesting Easter eggs for different reasons. One of which, I'll just give you the hack here for those who pick it up. I'll have this in my written review if you need to refer to it as well. If you go to the image gallery line, if you hit the left arrow, you'll be able to watch a VHS version of this film. So if you want kind of the throwback VHS experience, they have that on this disc. If you go to that same image gallery and go right, you will be able to see the Playgirl spread of one of the actors on here. I think Christopher George. So you get to see his Playgirl spread. So you get to see him in all of his glory. Yeah, so for anyone who's interested in that, find those Easter eggs. But overall, this is a really fantastic packed release. 1 4K disc, 1 Blu-ray disc for the movie, and then a whole disc of special features, which includes most of these that I talked about, except for the commentaries, which are on the individual movie disc. So overall, City of the Living Dead, very fun film. It's a good gateway for me to get into more Fulci. But I know that anyone who's a fan of this film will like really love this release. Yes. So do you already have this one?
I don't yet, but that is like a must-have for me. I am such a big fan. When I was in, I think it was Savannah, Georgia, where they filmed some of the cemetery, and I visited the cemetery, some of the cemetery that they filmed. And yeah, I love it. Like my favorite thing is either the vomiting guts scene or the drill.
Oh yeah.
Is so classic. I will say I would be very curious to see what you think of the Beyond. I think that's probably a lot of people's favorite Fulci. I go back and forth, which is my favorite Fulci, the Beyond or City of the Living Dead. It just depends on my mood. But yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I am going to also counter your release with some another horror release. Definitely not as prestigious, but you know, we here at the Video Attic, we like trash, um, like really fun, just garbage. So, yeah, I'm going to be talking about the giant Gila monster and the killer shrews.
Mm.
Um, and back, we also have a really nice booklet, um, which is really fantastic. I have to say, the photo reproductions are really nice.
Hmm.
Essays are really interesting. Here are the discs, and it's nice because they don't just they like have a separate disc for each film. You know, we appreciate that. Yeah, so these are really bad films, but they're just so bad that they're kind of fun. Um, I'm more familiar with these movies thanks to Mystery Science Theater 3000 doing them. Actually, it was kind of fun watching it for the first time, maybe without the commentary. Um, it's definitely not as fun, but I still had a really good time. Both of these movies are very just campy, kitschy, but they have sort of a level of sincerity to them that's kind of interesting. Like there is this whole sort of emotional arc that the giant Gila monster movie tries to have. It's like no. um like the Killer Shrews, I think, is a little more like in touch with its sort of B movie self. I think that's why I think I prefer it slightly over the other film. But I mean they're both kind of fun. I think like the big thing is this might be the first time, at least in the US, that we got a really nice looking, like, special edition of these films. Like, these are both like public domain, so they've been like put out like 1,000 times on like really not very good transfers. Not the case here. These are from new 4K scans. You can tell that while it's not pristine, I will say that I've never seen these films looking better. Like I've seen some like other like I went back through my collection. I had like some like I don't even know what label they were, just like generic DVDs of these just to kind of compare. And yeah, you can really tell how much cleaner it looks. A lot of the dirt and debris is cleaned up. Um, Again, both of these are black and white, so the contrast in the black and white is really well done. It's kind of amazing because you can really see how the killer shrews are just dogs in costumes.
Hmm.
Mwah. Amazing.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
like I said, these do have a lot of really nice special features. Particularly love the commentary tracks. You know, that's like one of my favorite special features.
Hmm.
They're really enjoyable. I will say, because we might, you know, have some people wondering, this does not have the MST3K episodes as bonus features. Shout Factory owns those still, as far as I know. So, yeah, they're not going to be on this disc. So keep that in mind. But if you just want these movies and you want them looking amazing, uh, yeah, this is like bar none the best he's ever looked. So really fantastic release.
Awesome. Yeah. And as we're getting more into spooky season, I think it's a perfect time to kind of like, I like to have a good mixture of like kind of like cheesy, like kitschy stuff like that to go with like the actual terrifying stuff. So I'll definitely have to check that one out for sure. My next title is kind of like an in between of those two moods, but still very sleazy. This is also from Cauldron Films. This is Frankenstein 80, which is an Italian film. Uh, and it is, like I said, very sleazy. So this has reversible cover art, which I will show off here. So here is the reversible art. A little bit brighter. And yeah, I already showed off the disc. So yeah, it's a pretty fun film. I think it didn't quite come together for me, but I guess it depends on what you're looking at it for. If you just want like kind of like a gory, sleazy, kind of misogynistic like horror film, I think you'll have fun with it. What this basically is, it's like a twist on the Frankenstein tale, where there is a doctor who has like invented a serum in which you can like successfully like transplant like any organ like onto a host, and it won't reject it basically. And he's like creating like this mosaic, I think he calls it, of like different limbs and organs and all this stuff. So if you want a Frankenstein tale where the monster gets like genitalia replaced, this is this is your tale. But of course, like the monster, he gets away and he starts terrorizing the city and like starts murdering women, and like there's like sexual assault and all kinds of stuff. And then there's also like a side plot of like this detective who his sister doesn't get some organs because of like this scientist's action. He starts investigating and trying to figure out what's actually going on. So like I said, this is very over the top, gory, cheesy, sleazy. It just doesn't really offer a lot beyond like kind of its base premise. Like I do like kind of like the gory stuff and everything. I think it's done very well in this. I just think once the monster is on kind of like his warpath, it kind of has a tonal imbalance. Like sometimes it wants to be kind of deadly serious, other times it wants to be very like have like a dark sense of humor. Sometimes it's very mean spirited. And overall, I think it's just like kind of a little bit of a mess. Like, it doesn't seem like it really knows what it wants to do in the overall scheme of things. I think it's like famously a very messy film. It's entertaining for what it is, but I didn't love it. I think it was just okay, and I do want to revisit this because there is a commentary track from a film historian who I haven't heard much from before. I believe her name is Heather Drain. Yeah, and she did a really good job of kind of breaking down this film, and she was kind of defending it against some of its detractors, and some of what she said I can kind of understand, and I'm open to watching it more like through the lens of some of what she said again. It just, some of the things are just a little bit too much for me, or just kind of like unnecessary, but overall it's pretty decent. This is a new 2K restoration of the uncensored negative, so this is the uncensored cut. This is presented in both English and Italian, so I recommend the original Italian, but there's an English track if you want it. From what I did sense from like toggling back and forth between the two, it sounds like the Italian track is a little bit more robust and like full, so that's another reason to stick with the original language track. This does come with that commentary I talked about. There's a 28-minute interview with one of the stars, and then there's a 39-minute video essay on kind of the Frankenstein lore and how it's been used in Italian cinema, and that's very interesting. I think that's one of the better aspects of this disc. I think it's like just kind of like as someone who's wanting to keep exploring Italian cinema, it's interesting to see like all these different interpretations of Frankenstein and how it's kind of been used, or Frankenstein's monster, and how this kind of lore has been used in Italian cinema. It's very interesting. So that's what I love about these Blu-rays. Even if like maybe the movie is like middling for you, sometimes there'll be a special feature that's so cool. You're like, oh, I do really want this disc because this is very interesting and I want to know about this. So Frankenstein 80, if you're a fan, it's a really great release. If you're on the edge, maybe see if there's somewhere you can like stream it, probably in poor quality, and now you'll get a better quality on Blu-ray. But if you love sleaze, I think you'll really love it, especially. So take that as you will.
Yeah, that is one that I've heard of. I definitely do recall hearing that it was kind of a mess of a movie, but
Mhm.
it has my interest peaked, so might have to check it out.
Yeah.
So, the last couple titles I have are really good,
Mm.
and nothing lasts forever. So my next title is Gay Paris.
Mm.
Purr-ee, I guess I should say. Do that. Purr.
Ooh.
So, okay, the big selling point is we have Judy Garland in this like animated cat movie. Um, I'm my interest is very peaked. And it does have some good qualities. Like the animation is great. It has this sort of like watercolor kind of very high stylistic approach to how it is doing the animation. Love that. The story is weird and all over the place.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, I this is one of those movies where I was like, wow, um, they're really going here. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, the whole thrust of the conflict in the film is the I don't know, can't recall her name. She's like,
Musette?
okay, yeah, voiced by Judy Garland. She
Yeah.
is kind of wooed by this like very villainous cat, and basically she is trafficked to
Yeah.
marry this guy, and she's kidnapped and trafficked, and there's kind of coded that she was might be doing sex work.
Yeah.
Like there was sort of like a not like they couldn't say, so horrible with these names. She was sort of like the madam cat who was sort of training her for
Mhm.
her new husband. So fill in the blanks there.
Mhm.
Yikes. And again, this is a kids movie, so it's like I understand when you try to balance that adult humor and kids humor, it just doesn't mesh very well. Like the story's kind of all over the place. Like I said, the main narrative is pretty gross. The musical numbers are also not very good or memorable. I mean, I will say that they they went for it. I just don't know what else to say. This movie is wild and very weird. But like I said, I like the animation. The voice acting is pretty good. I'm never going to complain about a Judy Garland performance. I would. This is one where I would have like killed for a commentary track or something.
Mhm.
Like, explain to me what was the thought process behind this? Like I would have loved to know that. But anyways, it's something. It's not very long. It's 85 minutes. I will say it does kind of feel a little longer than that. But yes, it is a movie and it happened. Uh, what did you think of this?
I'm a little bit kinder to it than you are, but it is kind of a very weird story. I don't think it's amazing. I thought it was just kind of like passively entertaining, but uh I did watch this with my wife, and there was a point where we just turned to each other and we are like, is she being trafficked? And we're just like, this is weird. But the I wanted to say the only reason I knew Musette off of the top of my head is because at the very beginning of the movie they're singing a song about her, and my wife was just like, "Are they just singing music, music?" And I was just like, "No, no, that's a character's Musette." And I was just like, I just like she's like, "This is not off to a start like a promising start where they just like can't think of original lyrics or just like just leave that. We'll come up with lyrics, music, music." So yeah, it's a very weird, strange movie. I like kind of how some like a lot of the like really old school children's movies, like legit like 50s, 60s, 40s, whatever, all of them, they can get super dark and weird and everything. And it's just like they're just like, yes, this is fine for kids. And like we we joke about certain things like in like the 90s and stuff being messed up, but like things were really messed up back like
Yeah.
in that era.
Yeah, I mean, you had like the Great Depression and all this crazy stuff happening, a bunch of wars. Like, yeah, I don't know what else are you gonna do. You got to scar your
Yeah.
kids somehow. So, yeah, I will say if that does sound interesting to you at all, even just for a weird curiosity, I would say check it out. I mean, This disc does look really nice. Like the animation and the colors really pop. Like this disc is really well put together. Your mileage on the movie may vary.
So yeah, I am glad that Warner's putting out more animation. They're coming out with another animated film this coming month, Cats Don't Dance. I'm very excited about. So I'm always glad when they do animation, even if sometimes I'm just like, I don't. This is a very strange entry, but whatever. My next one is a multi-film pack, and I'll try to go through this pretty quickly because we don't have all day. But this is a 6-film set from Mill Creek, and this is the Music and Romance Collection. And luckily, I've had a couple weeks to go through all these, so I didn't have to like binge them all in like a sitting or anything. But yeah, we have Shout, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Connie and Carla, the Man Who Cried, the Caveman's Valentine, and Madame Suzaka. So I'll try to go through these pretty quickly. There are 3 discs, 1 disc over here, and then like 2 stacked discs, so 2 films per disc. So here's all 3 here. So most of these films aren't like crazy long. They're still like, I am a little bit concerned about compression on some of these, but I'll get into the quality in a second, especially since this is Mill Creek. But mostly these films are pretty good. None of them are like classics, I would say. No, I wouldn't say any of them are classics. I don't think any of them are outright bad either. So they all kind of are just like, if you're looking for, if you get to the end of my reviews and you're like, this sounds fairly interesting, maybe check it out, especially since these are so cheap. But I'll go one by one. Shout is basically like a Dead Poets Society, but for like a country school of like delinquents, where John Travolta plays. It's the 50s. He plays a teacher in this rural school that comes and introduces rock and roll into their lives, like, and see how that changes for them, for their better, so they can go from delinquents to well-rounded, like respectable kids. In addition to John Travolta, there's Heather Graham and Gwyneth Paltrow in small roles, and some other like who else? Richard Jordan, James Walter. So couple of notable names. Captain Corelli's Mandolin. That one is more of a more serious kind of World War II era drama. It's set in Greece. Stars Penelope Cruz as a girl who is being raised by her father, played by John Hurt. And she has a man who she is going to potentially marry, played by Christian Bale. Who is playing Greek in this, which I found very interesting. That turn, he has to go off to fight a war, and she's unsure if he's ever going to come back. And then the French come to occupy the island of Greece, and within this occupation is Captain Corelli, played by Nicolas Cage. And while there's initially like this distrust because he's like an encroacher on this land, he's a jovial fellow who they end up falling in love. And then Christian Bale returns, and they have to deal with kind of this whole like love triangle-ish situation and PTSD and World War II and all this stuff mixed in together. It's very melodramatic. Overall, it's pretty solid, but not great. It's a little bit overly long. It's like 2 hours and 8 minutes long. But it does a decent job. There's some action, romance, thrills, drama. It's fine. I believe it's the only film in this release right now that has a standalone release from Universal. So if you only want that, you can probably pick it up separately, but it'd probably be almost the same price as paying for this. So might as well get 5 extra films. Connie and Carla is the only film I had seen previously, and it's one of the main reasons I got this set, because it stars Toni Collette and Nia Bardalos, and the premise isn't like the most forward thinking, but it also could have been handled much worse. It's kind of a crime comedy where they are Connie and Carla are 2 girls who love musical theater. They've been trying to like like get something going and like for in the entertainment business for years and kind of in the Midwest, um, but to no avail. Until one night they see a mob hit and they are forced to go on the run. And whenever they go on the run, they end up in the last place that anyone will ever think they will go, Hollywood. And then they end up going undercover as drag queens, so people think they are guys that are drag queens. So it's kind of that like weird element where there's some jokes that have not aged very well, but then there's also kind of like a respect and love for that community as well. So I can see where there are some problematic elements, or some elements that like it holds up pretty well. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, and the comedy is also kind of hit or miss. This also has David Duchovny and a array of other pretty decent actors as well. Overall, it's a pretty amusing movie. It's not one that I find myself returning to a lot, but it's fine. Most of these movies are just fine. The Man Who Cried is probably one of the weaker ones. It stars Christina Ricci and Johnny Depp, another World War II drama, where Christina Ricci is like kind of like a World War II orphan. I believe she's from Austria, and she kind of gets involved with like these cabaret singers and like theater troupe and everything. And she's kind of looking for her dad. And Johnny Depp is like seductive and like mysterious and stuff. It's kind of like his chocolat era, where he's kind of like a rogue and all that kind of stuff. And it's fine. The Caveman's Valentine is also, there's some elements that I kind of find a little bit iffy. That's Samuel L. Jackson. He plays a mentally ill homeless man who used to be a virtuoso pianist, and he kind of has like flashes of like who he used to be, but he's just very mentally unstable. And he ends up getting kind of like, someone tries to like take him basically off the street and rehabilitate him, and he ends up getting involved with like kind of this murder plot, that kind of like someone gets killed, and he kind of like believes he knows who did it, but no one really believes him because he's like mentally unwell. So it's kind of like this, and his daughter's also like a police officer who he's estranged with. So there's all this kind of like intrigue and said, but this is all, it's music driven. He's a pianist and stuff. So Samuel L. Jackson does a good job. I don't think they always handle the subject of mental illness like as deftly as they could or as sensitively, but it's fine. I know a lot. I'm not really selling this set. Madame Suzaka, that's the last one. It has Shirley MacLaine, and it's like your typical like elder, elder figure who's kind of nurturing young talent. She used to be a classical pianist, and now she is like training this young, I believe, Indian boy who is who his mom thinks he has the talent to be like a world-class pianist, but he needs kind of the discipline and stuff, and she's the person who's going to give it to him and kind of try to nurture his talent while also protecting him from like kind of the dog-eat-dog world of like this music industry. So that it's heartwarming in some respects. It's like very dramatic. It's done really well. Shirley MacLaine, she does a good job in this role. So overall, no complete duds, but no like out of this world hits, which with 6 films for one set, that's like, I believe it's $20 right now, but I think I've seen it as low as like $10 on Hamilton Books. For those who like shop there, they're great. So search there if you're interested in this. So $10 for 6 movies is not bad at all. And the quality, it could be better. This is Mill Creek we're talking about, but could be a lot worse because this is Mill Creek we're talking about. So there's some compression artifacts, especially with 2 movies a disc, but it's not, it seems to be the base masters that they had were working with this, they're passable. There's not been a lot of digital smoothing and manipulation. It just like, there's compression. You know what you're getting with Mill Creek with this budget release. It's passable. It does fine. There's no special features. None. Don't expect it. There's none. There's just these movies, 6 films, 3 discs. If you're interested at all, check it out. It's a fine release. Otherwise, just keep on going. Maybe streaming them on Tubi or something. I don't know. But like, these are just fine.
Yeah, that is unfortunately Mill Creek's sort of motto. It's fine, it's okay, it's passable.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's not always the case. I will say they have some nice box sets, but yeah,
Mhm.
this seems like meh. Um, my next one is another Warner Archive film, and that is The Life of Emile Zola. I think I'm saying that right. And here's the back. Yeah, so this is sort of loosely based on the famous French writer. I didn't really know much about him, so um, the movie's kind of interesting because it kind of gives you a crash course in kind of a Wikipedia summary of his the major events in his life. It's nearly 2 hours long. Um, it's fairly good. I think the acting is great. This movie certainly did really well with audiences in the Academy. I always try to do a little bit of homework on some of these releases for y'all, and um, this is the first movie to be nominated for 10 Oscars. This was the first movie that actually got a double digit like nomination. So I liked it. I just think that it's it's a little too bloated. I feel like there's like main beats that sort of happen to like the middle towards the end, which I kind of wish would have just been the center focus of the film instead of like of the backstory of his life and writing his first novel. I mean, I will say that like there is something to have that sort of context with him being like outspoken politically. This definitely comes into play later in the film and his life. Like the courtroom drama that feels like a whole separate other film. It somehow comes together, but I feel like it's a lot. It packs in a lot of things, and I wish it was maybe a little bit tighter, a little more streamlined. I still liked it though. I think the acting is great. Again, I can see why it sort of swept the Oscars with a lot of nominations. It's well shot, it's well acted, costumes, everything. Yeah, and the disc looks great. I never have any complaints with Warner Archive. I know I feel always sound like a broken record, but they have yet to put out something really not worthy of their label. I mean, I say that the same with Warner Brothers and their like the 4K stuff that they're putting out. Like, um, I like how they treat their vaulted stuff really well. This is black and white again. No artifacts or dirt or debris. The overall just looks really nice. It's not a particularly like spectacular looking film, but I mean it is incredibly well shot. So you really get that sort of detail in the photography, the production design. Yeah, so it was all right. It was good. It's just one of those movies that like I see it's like this trend of these big budget like biopics. I have another one coming up, but yeah, I mean they do get very formulaic and it's interesting to see even back then how it sort of didn't stray too far from like that formula. So, have you seen this one?
Yes, I actually talked about that on a recent Warner Archive video. I think I agree with you. I think the courtroom drama stuff is a little bit stronger. I found myself to be intrigued the most in that, but I do like kind of all the political stuff like within this and how it kind of like talks about like freedom of the press and how like the importance of that and how it kind of refers back to today and everything. And I think this is an interesting film. I know that Warner like really holds this in high esteem because this is the first Warner Brothers picture ever to win Best Picture at the Oscars. So
Hmm.
I know they kind of even though it's maybe not their most well known, they're just kind of like this is our first to win Best Picture, so we got to like treat it well and everything. And like I said, the performances are good. It is a little bit long, but I think, like you said, the context does help at the end. I think maybe could have been edited a little bit more tightly, but overall I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, and that's a great point of it being still very like relevant today with the themes about freedom of press and like kind of a crazy political climate. But yeah, it's one of those I had never heard of, and I'm glad that they put it out because it's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I my next set, it looks mammoth, and I mean it is, but I'll try not to take too long. This is a big one for anime fans. This came out a little while ago, but I'm just now getting around to it. This is the complete collector's edition of Genesis Evangelion. So this is the original series. I was excited to check this out because I know there's some new movies coming out on 4K this fall that I want to catch up. This massive set is the collector's edition. There's also a standard edition, which will pretty much comprise what's in this like first volume here, which are the 26 episodes, and then like the feature films, which coming right up. Which can be a little bit confusing because the feature films are basically recut versions of like the finale that were kind of restructured because like there was a lot of like outcry that the actual finale was a little bit confusing and just kind of unsatisfying for some. But when you watch the movies, it's also a little bit confusing, but I think it kind of sits a little bit better. The collector's edition it comes with this what you would get in the standard set and what's in this first set, I believe, are a newer version that of like the English dub and Japanese voices that has been made. These are the original like voices, like it's called like the classic versions are what these called. So it's basically everything that's on that first set, but just with the original audio. So if you grew up or first experienced like back in the day this series, and you are like have an emotional attachment to those original voices, the collector's edition is the only way you can get through them. And then there's also a third disc or a third kind of collection here, which is a final disc, in which these are TV the original home video release versions of a couple of these movies. So there's like different versions of like basically the same stuff, but fans will know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of hard to explain like the little intricacies and stuff. But this is like basically a lot of care has been taken into making sure that this release is like the most comprehensive as possible and stuff. And I'll show off a little bit more of this package in just a second, but just for those who don't know this series, it's basically a mecha show where it on its the basis of it is pretty straightforward. It's like set a little while after what they call a cataclysm, which is basically like a huge like destructive event, where this alien force, which are I believe they call angels, are have like attacked the world, but they were like taken out, but they're like there's always a chance that they will like return, so they're preparing this like kind of like mecha force that our main character is recruited to, and it's basically like all of these characters preparing to fight these alien forces. So those are called the mecha forces are they're called Evangelions. It's basically a fight between like good and evil and like saving the world and everything. And throughout this, you get to know all these characters and see their dynamics and like see them training, see how they fare after like taking down some of these forces, how they deal with failure, all this stuff. But beyond that, what this series really probably is best known for, and why people I think maybe classify this as maybe like one of like the like holy grails of anime is it's not simply it's like kind of a deconstruction of the genre. It's very focused, like the creator is really focused in like kind of like philosophy and psychology and everything. So there's a lot of like stuff with like Freud and Jung in this, and like imagery, and but then there's also a lot of stuff with like Shinto and like Christian religions and Buddhism and stuff. So there's a lot of different things swirling throughout this that kind of make it like elevate it into more of um, like a heady experience where you're trying to understand what themes are being explored, what these characters are kind of wrestling with on like a larger, grandiose scale. And like, I admit, like, there's times, especially during the finale, where we're getting kind of towards the end of things, and I'm like, what is happening? I understand what is happening, but I'm just like, I'm trying to piece it all together. So this is really a series I think you'll get more of the more you like rewatch it and like delve into it, and like you love the characters, but then you also get so much from like the themes and everything. And like I said, there's only 26 episodes for like the main thrust of the series, so these you can go through them pretty quickly. And then like the series, the movies that go along with it, they kind of recontextualize stuff and everything in a really interesting way. So in addition to the disc for this collector's edition, you also kind of get this booklet here, which includes like all kinds of information and about like the characters and just kind of like episode guides and everything. So like it's like an encyclopedia for things. There's also these art cards, which I'll try to gracefully unfold here and kind of show off some of those as well. So you get here one. So just a lot of really cool exclusive art cards for fans. So I believe, yeah, there we go. So this is a packed set. It's been remastered in HD, and it looks very nice throughout. This was made in the 90s, and it retains all that original, like kind of like animation style. It hasn't been like digitally smoothed over or anything. There are like the original imperfections within this, which I think are charming, but it's been cleaned up quite a bit. The audio tracks sound really great. There's English versions, there's Japanese versions, there's like 3 different types of subtitle options where you can do the English SDH, which includes like the action, also subtitled like boom, or door locks or stuff like that. English, just straight English without this action effects, and then there's also a version to watch with just like the words translated. So any like signs or anything, those would be translated into English. But so yeah, so if you're watching like in English but you still want those translated, you also have that option. So it's been really well thought out throughout. If you're a fan of this series, I think if you're a hardcore fan, I think you'll definitely want to get the collector's edition. If not, if you are kind of wanting to dip your toe into it, the standard edition is significantly cheaper. I believe it's maybe like over $100 cheaper. So you may want to try that if you're just like dipping your toe into things. But if you really know you love this series, the collector's edition, it's very nice. I love this packaging. It's very like substantial. It's worth it for fans if you are into it. It's a beautiful release. Definitely recommend it. And I'm so excited to delve more into this series as these releases keep coming out.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I know that is one that even as a non-anime fan, I've definitely heard of. Like you said, this is one that a lot of fans sort of put on a pedestal. So that's really cool that it's kind of has the deluxe edition, and like you said, that there's a more affordable, it seems like, alternative. My next title is from Kino. It's actually my only is that right? Yeah, that's my only Kino title this week. Next week I have a lot of them, but this comes from the Milestone collection, and that is The Spanish Dancer. And this was another film that like I didn't really kind of know a lot of the history behind it. It is based on a novel that was pretty popular. It's had a lot of adaptations. Interestingly enough, there is a Mary Pickford adaptation titled Rosita that's actually supposed to be better, and it was released in the same year. This one's interesting. It's from 1923, and I mentioned that because I see a lot of, for an American silent film, you can really see like already the influence of German expressionism and how things are shot, how things are framed, how things kind of have this sort of very surreal. Um, and I mentioned surreal because this is a very weird movie. Like it is a romance. It does have a lot of political intrigue, but there's just stuff that's almost sort of nightmarish sprinkled throughout, which is interesting. Like I don't know how much it really sort of adds to the movie, but it does give it this sort of off kilter feel. Um, and yeah, I could definitely see where this maybe isn't the best version of the story. Now, I haven't seen the other adaptations. I will say the plot could use maybe a little bit more streamline. I think that it's kind of funny because like the political stuff could have, I think, been handled a little bit better. Um, Unlike the last title I just reviewed, where I think like all that stuff is given a lot more context to give it a lot more impact, and I didn't really feel like I got that here, but it's interesting. There is a whipping scene that felt very fetishy. Like it was like, wow. This was definitely pre-code. And again, there, it's really interesting to see kind of how stuff like that was sort of handled in the 20s. Like it's kind of wild to think that this is 100 years old this year. So we do have a really nice commentary track, which was really fun. I think it helped me appreciate the movie a little bit more the second time around, giving a lot of background about the source material, about the actors, the director, the sort of climate that this film was actually made. So all of that stuff is really amazing context, and I love the effort of putting a commentary track on here. It looks nice. Again, this is 100 years old. It's not going to be pristine. There is a lot of wear. There's a lot of tear. I will say that I can see where this has been restored, probably the best it possibly will be. But just keep your expectations in check. It's not. I mean, you're not going to get some beautiful like 4K ultra sort of restoration for a movie this old. But a lot of silent films did not survive, so I'm kind of glad that we have this at all, and it does look really good. I just temper your expectations. But the movie itself is fine. It is a really nice presentation, though. I think, like I said, I think it looks probably as best as it ever will be. And we do have a nice sort of featurette and a commentary track. So all really good stuff.
Nice. I really like what Milestone usually puts out, so I'll definitely have to check that out, even though maybe I would have liked to seen the other version first, but maybe I'll either have to see if that has a release out, or like hopefully it'll put it out soon, because I reviewed a Mary Pickford film recently that I thought was pretty good, so I'm interested to check out more from her. My next film was not on my radar at all. It just kind of showed up, and surprisingly, I liked it. So I was excited to talk about it. This is from Indieplex, and this is The Merger, which this is a burn disc. At least my copy is. I assume this is such a small label, and I've received kind of movies like this from them before, that I assume that they'll probably all be burn discs. I just want to make that clear. So this is just a very small label. So we're lucky we're getting this on Blu-ray at all. And I think it's a pretty charming film. I think especially if you like kind of like underdog stories, I think you'll really like this. This is an Australian film. It involves a small town and the sport of Australian football, footy, as they call it. So it goes beyond a sports movie. It's pretty interesting. It's like a town where they are potentially going to lose their footy team if things don't improve financially, and like overall, like they may be kind of absorbed into like a neighboring town and like everything. And their only hope once their like coach ends up in the hospital, they need a replacement coach, and the only replacement is this guy who is pretty much known around town for almost leading the town into bankruptcy, and he's kind of hated around town, but it's because he was trying to like do like an environmentalist cause. So people, he's like a famous. He was once a very famous, like promising footy player, but he kind of got derailed with an injury and all this stuff. So he has to kind of like come on as a coach against like kind of the will of the town at large, and rebuild the football team into like their former glory, where they can like stay independent and like everything, and like retain the glory of the town and stuff. But where this kind of transcends like a traditional underdog story is how they handle and weave in the refugee crisis, and how that is handled in Australia, and how a lot of people are initially kind of distrustful of like the refugees who are being brought into Australia, and they kind of like want to preserve like, it's just kind of like how like kind of the immigration situation over here, how people are wanting to protect their jobs, and there's like hatred towards these people who are coming in, even though they are leaving these like war-torn countries where they were potentially going to be killed, or their families could have been killed. So you get all like this added drama within this of like these two cultures clashing, while also some of them coming onto this team and like people coming to understandings. It's like kind of like simplistic in a way, where it's like this sport brings the town together and also brings this larger community together, and like breeds understanding of just like these people who may be kind of like ignorant to certain points of view. They kind of understand like, oh, you are my brother now. I understand like that you have went through hell. I want to protect you like I protect my own, and I like have a deeper level of understanding. So yes, it is a little bit trite in some ways, but I found it very heartwarming, and it's a pretty funny movie overall. Like there's like a lot of really fun characters, a lot of good like one-liners that are throughout. It's not like hacky like zing zing, but it's like a lot of really well structured jokes, and it's just like a heartwarming underdog tale. So if this interests you at all, I highly recommend checking it out. I believe it's available for rent on like Prime Video as well. They kind of advertise that on like their like the Indieplex channel. But overall, it's worth a watch, especially if you love these types of films. I always love a good heartwarming film. This actually looks pretty nice on Blu-ray. It only came out a couple years ago in Australia, and now we're getting it, and it looks nice on Blu-ray. Nice, rich colors, no compression artifacts or anything like that. You also get a couple of surprisingly, you get a couple of special features, which includes 11-minute making of, and then a 14-minute interview that was on Australian television with the director as well. So a couple of good features. Overall heartwarming movie. The merger, I liked it. It's a good movie. I recommend it. So yeah, it's just a simple, well done movie.
Nice. That was one that was really not on my radar. So that's one that sounds really interesting. And like you said, you can stream it. So it's like a nice try before you buy. So my next one is one I was really excited when I heard that they were doing a 4K of this, and that is Elizabeth. This is, of course, the costume period piece about Elizabeth I. Kate Blanchett, amazing. Love her. If you don't love her, I don't understand what's going on with your life. But yeah, this is the very definition of like big budget costume period film. Like this, there was a really interesting time in the late 90s where like this was like a new sort of trend with like this Shakespeare in Love, Romeo and Juliet, where it was taking this more classical take on like period films. This one's a little bit more traditional in that sense, though. But it's so good. I mean, I understand why this got like a ton of Oscar nominations. It actually only won one, which is kind of wild to me. I think it was for makeup, which I can understand. The makeup's great. The costumes are amazing. It's just a very big, sweeping sort of retelling of her life. Yes, it's not very accurate. There was some people that kind of were like historians that were kind of upset that they sort of diminished her role. as queen, and that she didn't maybe have as much agency as she maybe did in real life. Um, I understand that position. Rewatching it, it was really interesting to watch it in the context of sort of like films that are a little bit more like Girl Boss, and like this was definitely in a weird time in the 90s where we were sort of transitioning into that, but like slowly. Um, but yeah, Kate Blanchett is amazing. All the actors is great. There is a little bit of like doomed romance that felt a little awkward. Like there is definitely more interesting sort of political and there was a lot of religious infighting that was going on. So I thought that stuff was way more interesting than sort of this love story that was kind of hacked in there. But it's fine. As far as how it looks, I will say this had a 2010 Blu-ray release, and I don't own that one, but I have to think that this is way better. Like this is a very colorful film. This is a very vibrant looking film, so you really want something that like really has that sort of robust nature to it. It doesn't look overly scrubbed, which is great. It has that really nice sort of film texture and look to it. The photography is outstanding, and it's just I love how it looks. The colors really pop. Again, you don't have that sort of over processed look. Everything looks really natural and nice. Really nice set, and the we have the features that were ported over from previous releases. So looks great, sounds great. I really enjoy this movie. I love like period films like this, especially with like actors that are awesome. So you've seen this?
Yes, but I don't really remember it. But oddly enough, I remember like a little bit better Elizabeth the Golden Age, the sequel, which I remember liking
Mm.
more than her Elizabeth. So I I hope they release that sequel on 4K as well, because I would love to get a perspective. I'm going to obviously watch this, but I want to see like how I feel about it now that I'm older and can like
Mm.
appreciate things a little bit more. But I'm very anxious to revisit this because I love Kate Blanchett, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but she has a small role in The Man Who Cried, which I talked about earlier. But like I also I'll watch her in anything, but I'm especially excited that this got a 4K release physically. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
My final title, I felt this was like a appropriate final title because it kind of is all encompassing of kind of what we talk about. And this is also like a success story because I talked about an element of this release previously when it was DVD only, and now we got a Blu-ray upgrade, so that's pretty awesome. This is from Music Box Films Entertainment. This is the complete story of film, which I previously reviewed on this. The story of film, A New Generation. So this is kind of like the back like card that comes off. So this is over this. And so this kind of folds out into this 4-disc release here, which I'll delve into. So basically, what this is, for those who need a refresher on what I talked about last time, this project is what it sounds like. It is the story of film. It is film from like the 1800s until modern day, where the film historian Mark Cousins, he kind of breaks stuff down so thoroughly. There are 15 hour-long episodes, or a little over hour-long episodes, like of basically those 1800s to like 2010 or so when it first came out, and then you get another nearly 3-hour feature which comprises 2010 to the current day when it came out last year, which is what I had seen previously because I didn't have access to the full 15-part original series, but now I do on Blu-ray, everything. So the decades that they cover are not like as like 1920, 1930. It's kind of like a little less linear. So you get like The first one's like 1895 to 1918, then 1918 to 1928, and then 1918 to 1932. So you kind of like another like aspect of stuff. So some of the topics covered include like world filmmaking, like how filmmaking was more of a global aspect before the invention of sound, because we could just import a lot of like foreign features and just kind of put English subtitles on stuff. So it's like actually we started out more as like a global entertainment thing, and then the invention of sound made us more nationalistic and like more focused on English language stuff. Then you get like the impact of the war, all like kind of the Hays Code stuff, the like 70s maverick filmmakers, the introduction of like visual effects, like all kinds of stuff. It's just like broken down so intensely. Like there are so many clips throughout this that like you're just gonna want to have like your phone open, taking notes, or like a pen and piece of paper. Like you'll just see so many films. You're like, ooh, I want to see that. I want to see that. It's especially valuable with those first, especially like pre 1950s, when like I think a lot of audiences aren't as aware of some of those films. There's so many films that like you would probably have never heard of that they just kind of explore and just like get a really well-rounded representation of stuff. The only small criticism I would lobby towards this is there are times where you can kind of see the filmmaker's kind of biases kind of rear its ugly head, where like maybe he's a little bit more like he seems a little bit more favorable to like experimental and like auteur filmmakers rather than maybe the actual like blockbuster stuff. So like maybe he doesn't give as much of a shine to things that maybe are like should be given more of a prominence like in like popular culture. But for film nerds especially, I think this will be fun. But he obviously doesn't overlook that type of stuff, and just kind of the valuable insights that you get as like a film lover, like as I am, and as I know you are in our audiences. I think it's just such a rich journey just to go through all these decades and see what like kind of like how we jumped forward in like narrative possibilities. Is so exciting. So I really love all of like this is over 18 hours of material in this. There are no special features, but this whole thing is pretty much like a special feature. So there's like a trailer for the new generation, which is on here, but everything else, you get it in nice Blu-ray quality. Everything looks really nice. The clips seem sourced from the best sources possible when this was made. The sound is really great. DTS 5.1 sounds really rich and really great. If you're a lover of film, definitely check this out somehow. I like owning this. If you can find it somewhere to stream and you don't want to plop down the money for this excellent set, still stream it. But it's a really, really cool documentary. And I have so many films I need to catch up on. It's insane.
Nice. Yeah, that is one that I've seen a couple of the episodes, but it's like I haven't finished it all. So that sounds like kind of the perfect time to just, get into all of those. My final one is I wanted to save what I thought was the best for last, or the one that I was most excited about this week as far as like re-releases, and that is Promising Young Woman on 4K. I remember how this was such a game changer when it came out, and revisiting it, I still think it's very potent and a vital film. It's hard because like I want to talk about the ending, but I feel like it's probably I'm not gonna spoil it. But yeah, we'll get into it. But yeah, I think this is without a doubt one of the among the most really just again vital women centric directed movie that came out of the post Me Too era. I like how it's sort of piggybacking off like revenge thrillers in the vein of like Kill Bill, or going back a little bit further, I Spit on Your Grave. But I think the film takes those but sort of contextualizes it in an interesting way. And I think that's like some of the criticism that I heard was it didn't really follow that formula, and it wasn't maybe as narratively satisfying. I don't agree with that, but like it definitely I I understand when you kind of think it's going a certain way. It's definitely not. I think it sort of plays counter to stuff like Kill Bill. You can see Kill Bill as a feminist film in its own right, or not. But I think that this is a really an interesting sort of counter to that. I won't spoil the ending, but the ending has like one of those like I literally was like frozen. Like I was so shook by the ending. And then it's kind of pivots to this very like it's still devastating, but it's such a satisfying ending, like the conclusion. It still is just gut wrenching. Yeah, and it's again, it's a really interesting sort of take on a thriller that's almost like an anti-thriller in a big way. So I like it. I'm being very vague because I don't want to like spoil things, and it's one of those films that like I don't understand why it's sort of not talked about anymore. I remember this was such a huge thing when it came out, and now we've kind of moved on, but I still think it's great. I love that it's got a re-release. The bonus features, I believe this is just a port over from the Blu-ray. I kind of wish this would have got a slipcover, but that's okay. This does have a digital code that's not in there now, but yours will be if you order it. Same with Elizabeth. I forgot to say there is a digital code that comes with that. Fantastic film. The ending still I think about to this day. It's just outside of maybe Night of the Living Dead, it's such a bleak. It's bleak, but I mean I like how it pivots to something that's a little more hopeful. So without spoiling it, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite films of that year. We did an extensive home dance episode about this very early on in our episode run, so check that out. But I love it so much. I love Emerald Fennell. I'm so excited. She has a new movie coming out called Saltburn that just debuted at the Telluride Film Festival. So I'm very excited to check that out. But yeah, that Carey Mulligan was great. I wish she would have won the Best Actress, but I can't no complaints with Frances McDormand. But yeah, that's such a great film. Love it so much. So glad it's coming to 4K. I didn't think it ever would once it got that initial Blu-ray release, but thrilled that it's now on 4K.
Yeah, and it looks great. I mean, this is one that I did own on Blu-ray. I think it does look marginally better. It's not like um night and day because it's of course is a newer film. But yeah, the price is right, and you get an upgrade if you, especially if you never own this. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Mhm.
get it immediately. So I wanted to end on like a really high note. Really awesome. I think with that, we're gonna wrap up. As always, we really appreciate any likes, comments. All of that stuff's awesome, and it helps get more eyeballs on this show. Um, and please subscribe. We just hit over 7,000 subscribers. Um, you want to subscribe because we do this weekly. We do this. We do a lot of amazing exclusive stuff, interviews, really amazing stuff you don't want to miss. As always, thank you for hanging out with us.